Hi, and thank you for joining me for another short talk. And friends, today I want to end all the controversy once and for all and explain to you what makes someone what we call today Jewish, and what does being in a covenant mean? And is there any difference between someone who claims to be born Jewish and a Gentile? And why do I think this topic is so important? Well, mainly because it's really hard for the Jewish community to progress in an ethical social arena till we first get our values and priorities in order. And friends, I must begin by telling you that if the God of Israel does not ultimately interact with his creation via a meritocracy, we do not want him. In other words, if the Torah does not reward and punish people solely on the basis of behavior, we do not want it. Why? Because justice cannot exist if people are not judged fairly. A principle laid down in Torah itself of not favoring anyone in judgment for any reason. Friends, I'm going to tell you something today that you probably never heard, and that's that only because someone stood on Mount Sinai and accepted Torah does not mean that they in some spiritual way accepted the Torah for all their future descendants. This notion is not only not sound, that a good God would allow anyone to make such a decision for anyone else, but actually it's unethical that he would allow that person to suffer the spiritual consequences for that decision. This, my friends, is the clearest example of lifnei iver, of placing a stumbling block before a blind person. Again, this idea is not only ridiculous, it's unbiblical and it's unethical. And friends, first and foremost, you must also know that the notion that spiritual responsibility is transferred from mother to child is not in Torah, and for sure it's not halachic that some spiritual responsibility is transferred. So it's really left up to us to logically make the case for it being either a good or bad idea. But first, let's start off by asking a few questions just to make sure that we're on the same page here. Friends, are we correct in poking fun at Mormons who baptize themselves for the dead, who in their opinion claim that they are in some way affecting the soul of that dead individual by their actions? And don't we also poke fun at the Christian concept of original sin? Why? Because we teach that everyone suffers for their own sin. Or don't we even make fun of the idea that someone can die for your sins? Now, using that same logic, if someone can make you liable for sin, why can't someone else free you from that sin or liability? Remember what we just mentioned, that we claim that we are transferring a responsibility onto our children by supposedly accepting Torah for them. In other words, today we teach that by someone accepting Torah, Mount Sinai, or even going through a halachic conversion process, that they in some way are spiritually, like we said, accepting the Torah for all their future generations. How does that make every belief that we just mentioned by Christians unintelligible? Right? Today we're taught that a Jew is intrinsically superior to a non-Jew, and this is in some way transferable to their offspring. So by you having children, you're spiritually elevating their status for them. The idea that a Jew cannot stop being a Jew, or stop being chosen, or stop being part of God's covenant, no matter what he does, right? This is what we teach nowadays. They'll tell you, Kol Yisrael yesh lachem chelek l'olam haba, that all Jews have a share in the world to come. Again, something that was paid supposedly by their ancestors. And that's not even the complete statement. They'll never read the rest of that Mishnah. But anyways, I mean, not even Christians believe that you can save people without their consent. And again, friends, I must ask, does this sound just to you? Because it does not sound just or sound to me. And tonight, my friends, I'm going to show you that this form of thinking does not only not align itself with Torah, but it's actually contrary to halacha. So the first question we should ask is, what was really received at Sinai? Because no one could deny that it was an everlasting covenant. In other words, something that is still applicable and alive today. This, my friends, is certain. However, what is not certain is some sort of irremovable spiritual status transferred via blood. And what I'm teaching tonight is a debate that has been prevalent in the Jewish world for some time now between the universalist and the particularist. Basically an argument between Jewish rationalists and Jewish mystics, mainly on the intrinsic value of a Jew and the intrinsic value of a non-Jew. And long story short, friends, both Jews and non-Jews are as intrinsically worthless as they are valuable. However, to first find out what actually was accepted on Mount Sinai, we first need to have a good understanding of the covenants that ultimately distinguish Israel from the rest of the world. However, to get a good understanding on this, we first need to understand what is taught today and what is believed regarding being Jewish and what is a Jew and what does it mean to be a Jew. Today, people teach that Jews are the chosen people apart from belief and behavior. Predominantly, mystics teach that Jews, apart from belief and behavior, are intrinsically endowed with a special soul. Like we said, they also teach that all Jews have a share in the world to come, no matter what. They also teach that if your mother is Jewish, you are bound to the 613 mitzvot, whether you accepted them or not, and that the Almighty holds you to a higher standard than, let's say, a non-Jewish person who never accepted or knows of Torah. And again, like we said, it's a bit preposterous to believe that by someone making a decision for themselves, they could then bind you to a set of ceremonial rules that you never accepted. The big question is, why do Jews feel that this must be true? Friends, tonight we'll begin with the first covenant that the Almighty makes with the father of the Jewish religion, our father Abraham, in Parshat Lech Lecha. The traditional understanding is that our Creator randomly chose our father Abraham because he wanted to. In other words, they, the particularists, will teach you that the Almighty had no actual reason for choosing Abraham other than, like we said, that he wanted to. And this, friends, cannot be further from the truth because, although in short, we call it the choosing or really the appointing of Avraham Avinu, one can honestly come to a conclusion that it was Abraham that was actually doing the choosing. In other words, it is true that Abraham heard the voice of God. However, that in itself means nothing, my friends. What makes that encounter significant is that after he heard the voice, my friends, he acted. In other words, each and every one of us are confronted with that still voice daily to pick up from where we're at and go to where the Almighty wants us to be. And yes, because of how you behave, that voice could be clearer than, let's say, someone who has fashioned his or her life in a way that they have blunted their conscience. So what does this teach us? Friends, it's telling us that Avraham Avinu's interaction with the Almighty was due to Abraham's faithfulness, which impressed the Almighty to the point that the Creator stated that he will in turn make him into a great nation that would ultimately end up blessing all the families of the earth, which we see later being fulfilled with Israel becoming that nation. And friends, the Abrahamic commitment to the Creator and the result of it is hardly ever taught, and rather it's replaced by the Sinai experience. In other words, this is what happens when someone chooses to follow the Creator. He is then promised greater things. In Abraham's case, he is told that now he, Abraham, because he has chosen to follow God, the Creator will make him and those who follow in his footsteps a great nation. Ultimately, again, what we see occurring on Mount Sinai, which is why when someone converts to Judaism, he is known either as a Ben or Bat Abraham and not a Ben or Bat Israel. In other words, one huge gulf that separates the universalists from the particularists is when do they pinpoint the beginning of our religion. The Universalist chooses the Abrahamic commitment, while the Particularist chooses Har Sinai. In other words, it was that Abrahamic commitment which culminated in a covenant, which even today still depicts the personal relationship we enjoy and experience with our Creator. A commitment and status that could only be transferred by teaching and sharing, which is why the Rambam writes in Sefer HaMitzvot that our father Abraham, once he realized that he loved God, could not contain or control himself from spreading that knowledge and that love to all of humanity. It was this personal covenant which wins you favor with the Creator. It is that what makes us what we call today Jewish. An experience that is built completely on us. Forget blood, forget yichus. It's all about merit. And this covenant is never spoken of today because if you don't understand this covenant, you do not understand what it means to be a Jew, my friends. And how does this covenant differ from the Sinai experience of the Sinai covenant? Well, the Sinai covenant is the gathering of all those who, in the spirit of Avram Avinu, decided to put their lives aside to follow the Almighty. It is the ingathering, it is the ripening, it's the realization that the only way you're going to make an impact in this world is by working with like-minded people sealed by the Constitution that we call a Torah. In other words, it is the Abrahamic covenant that solidifies our religious identity, and the Sinai covenant that solidified our nationalistic identity. And how do the two differ? Friends, the difference is that a personal relationship with HaKodesh Baruch Hu cannot be transmitted via blood, while a nationalistic status can. The difference is that being a member of the nation of Israel, which is transferred via blood, is similar to how citizenship in many countries today is also transferred via blood. But it means nothing spiritually if it is not accompanied by the Abrahamic commitment, which is why the notion of someone having a Jewish mother making them part of Israel was actually developed by Chazal, by the Beit Din Hagadol, and not a concept that appears in Torah Shebektav itself. In other words, it's 100% applicable, but 100% rabbinic. It's halakha, but it's just for legal purposes and not spiritual ones, which is why the halakha is clear that someone, although he may have been born of a Jewish mother, if he is publicly mechalel Shabbat or violates Shabbat or denies Torah principles, is kegoy, equivalent to a Gentile, while still being liable for the legal punishments administered by the court. In other words, he's still legally part of Israel. And this is an area where many today stumble on, how halakha can call someone a Gentile while they are still technically part of Israel. In other words, being an ethnic Jew without Torah means nothing. It doesn't mean that you're spiritually responsible for the mitzvot, as if you would have accepted them. In other words, you are no more spiritually liable than a non-Jew who refuses to choose a life of blessing by not accepting the same Torah for himself. Which is why the Kiruv or Jewish outreach movement did not exist prior to Chabad, a movement that, as you know, only targets ethnic Jews. Now, is it because we're wiser than virtually every rabbi prior to the Baal Shem Tov? No, friends. It's because Chazal knew how to distinguish between covenants, and now you do also, my friends. And what if I also told you that there is no source anywhere in Jewish law that states that it is forbidden to encourage non-Jews to consider Torah? In other words, what if I also told you that there are many, many sources that teach that we have an obligation to reach out to non-Jews with Torah, and there is virtually no source that teaches that ethnic Jews have some sort of preference? Why not? Is it that Chazal didn't care about secular Jews who left Torah? Of course they did, but rather, they viewed their status as non-Jews as well. And how are we supposed to treat non-Jews according to halakha and according to Torah? Marvelously, sharing with them the life-changing truth that we have come to know. And if you're wondering, why does someone who embraces the Abrahamic covenant also have to embrace the Sinai covenant? Friends, because one follows the other. One of the things that made our father Abraham great is that he took Hashem at his words. And friends, our Creator's words are as applicable in Parashat Lech Lecha as they are in Parashat Yitro, because we have one God with one Torah, which is nothing less than the Creator's will codified. So, if you believe Torah is true, you cannot stop at Abraham. Your place is within the nation of Israel, the culmination of our Creator's promise to Avram Avinu. So, follow truth, take Torah, and be Jewish. For more information, friends, on everything Jewish, please visit bejewish.org. Thank you.